Welcome to my channel and welcome to my website. My name is Daryl and this is Programming in Any Language. The website is www.black-duck.com. It's where you'll find all my videos organized in logical order. Okay, so many applications require the totaling of numbers. Often these are in arrays. Well, often they're also in files, but they get moved to arrays so we can perform many different operations on them. Two of those operations are generating a total and obtaining an average. Behind me you'll see a simulation of what I'm trying to describe. On the left is a cash sales text file. It contains a bunch of decimal numbers. These could be sales throughout the day, or week, or anything really. The point is, we would like to determine the total and the average of these numbers. Well, ideally we would read these numbers into an array. The array could be the same size as the number of records, but generally it's not. So, we end up reading these numbers into an array so we can work with them. And we read these numbers, we can easily get the number of records by simply counting them as they are read. Knowing how many there are gives us a stopping point when we read the array, when we're totaling numbers. It also gives us the divisor we need if we want to calculate an average. Take a look. In this video we're going to look at reading a file of numbers, doubles, and accumulating a total for those numbers, and also calculating an average. It's fairly straightforward. We'll be using it in an array. I'll be reading a file into an array and then summing the number of elements in the array to get that total. To kind of take a look at this, we basically, if you look at the screen, you're going to total the value of an array by simply using a loop, and it's nothing more than simply processing through the loop, starting with wherever the loop is beginning, going through the loop, and up until the array length, units. Here in this case, we have units length here, and then totaling it as we get through each of those elements. One difference, however, though, this assumes that the entire array is filled. If the entire array is not filled and you're only accumulating numbers that you read into the array, then you want to use some other kind of a variable to actually figure out the length of when you actually stop. We actually stop calculating that total amount. And not only that, you can use that number then to find the average, because once you've got that total, it's only a matter of dividing it by the number of elements you had that you actually read in. This could be units length, again, if the array is full. Otherwise, it's another variable that you calculated, that you counted as you read those numbers in. And that's the way we're going to do it in this particular example. We're going to go through the process and create a larger array, but read in a certain number of values. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to basically do something like this. The figure below basically shows the contents displayed in Notepad, and a program reading the file to determine the total and an average. So you see the cash sales are sitting right here with all these numbers in it. You might be accumulating those some way in a business or whatever, but you'd have these numbers available to you. The application reads the file's contents into an array. It displays the array's contents in a list box over here, as you can see. And then it calculates and displays the total and the average of the array's values in another list box at the bottom, right over here. Well, how do we do that? Well, basically, we start by reading the array. And we can do this in form load. We really don't need any buttons. In fact, if you take a look at this thing, there's no buttons on here at all. It simply runs. We simply process by form load. It does everything it needs to do and gives us our display, and that's it. So we're going to read that array. We're then going to place it in the list box. We'll be doing that as we read it. We'll then total all the amounts, and we'll calculate the average. Notice I set up that placing it in a list box, totaling all the amounts, calculating the average. I set up as methods. Rather than crowd the form load with all this code, we're simply going to call methods that are going to do this for us. Because once we have the array and we've got that array sitting in form load, it can pass it to the methods we're going to be using over here. When it's done, it'll display the results and we'll end the program. It'll look something like this. We're going to basically set up a double array of 100, initialize the array to 0, so it's got all zeros in it. We're going to read it in form load, adding it to a file, and then we're going to save the number of records read. So we have that count that we can use for the average, and also make sure we are only adding what we need to add. This is what our cash sales look like. It's simply a list of numbers sitting in Notepad. We can just throw those together any way you want. And the way the process works, we have that cash sales file total sitting over here. So this is the file we actually are reading. In order to calculate a total, we're going to actually create a formula. We'll look at this in a second, but the first thing we want to do is we want to read this into an array. So we'd build our array, which might be 100 long, and then we'd read all those elements into it. And when we ran out of numbers, out of elements to read in the list box, in the file, we want to retain that record count, which in this case is 12, 0 through 11. So we've got a 12, and that's what our divisor is for our average. It's also when to know when to stop in the array when we're doing our add. As long as it's less than 12, we can continue to add our numbers there. So once we've got them sitting in here, we then can apply this formula, total equals total times cash sales X. So we start with putting our X value, our pointer, up at 0 here, and we grab 100.1 and add it to our total. And then 300 plus 5, add it to our total, and so on down the line until we get to this. And we stop when our record count reaches 12. We're done, and that's it. So that's all we need to do this kind of thing. So let's kind of put this together. What I've got here is a screen. I'm going to kind of build something right now. All I really need is let's get the toolbox out. View our toolbox. And let's grab our common controls. We're going to certainly use a list box. And we're going to create one of them right away. We're going to make it wide enough to hold our data values in here. And we're going to change the font on this thing so that it basically can be seen real easily. Make that size 12. And we'll make it bold. And we'll give it a name. We're going to call this guy LBX file. So it's going to be the container that's going to hold our entire file. Make it a little larger too, going in there, and something like that. It's pretty well set up now the way we want it. I don't think we need to do anything else to this thing. So what we're going to do then is we're going to copy this guy, LBX file, do a Control C and a Control V, and get a second one down here, but make it smaller. And this one will be called, it's already got retained the font properties, but we're going to have to give it a name. We'll call it List Box Summary, LBX SUMMARY. This will hold the total and the average. And of course we want to create a button on the bottom here, which will be our exit button, which we'll go ahead and give a name right now down here. We'll call it exit. We'll change its font to 12 and bold as well. So it's sitting there like this. Make it a little larger. It looks pretty good right now. Give it a button exit for a name and code. BTNEXIT, and we're all set to go. Okay, let's put this thing in the middle. Format, align, or actually center on form horizontally. That's perfectly fine there. This guy we can raise a little bit, bring this thing up a little bit. Take the two of these, and we can probably align this center on form horizontally, and that's looking good too. So our form is done. We don't need anything else, except we might want to put a name on the form title here, so we'll do that. And we'll call this thing total and average. And now that's sitting up on the form up here. Let's save that. Let's run it just to make sure it looks good. Now there it is. Looks reasonable. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't even exit. Might want to adjust this a little bit. Let's just go ahead and bring that thing up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so how are we going to do this thing? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, let's go ahead and program our exit button. So we'll double click on this, and we'll just do a / close the application. And then we'll go down here and this dot close. And we're all set there. So that closes the application. The next thing we want to do is we want to go into form load, because all this is going to happen when we actually start the application. So to do that, we click on the form. Doing that creates a form load event. And in this, we can then say that we'd like to basically do all the things we want to do. One of the things we want to do is we want to set up an array. So we're going to set up a double, and it's going to be an array, and we're going to call it DBL cash sales. And it's going to be equal to a new double, and we're going to allow for 100 elements in here. We don't know how many sales we're going to make in a month, week, whatever we're actually using it. So we'd have to create some kind of an amount here. I'm going to actually kill the toolbox just so we get more room, and then I'm going to tab out here and make the comment establish array of 100 elements. Then I'm going to go ahead and create a counter. I'm going to call this int record count. Make it equal to 0. And this guy right here is going to end up being the number of records we actually read from the file. Holds number of records read. We're then going to create a routine called initialize array. We're going to pass it DBL cache sales. And notice we have an error because we haven't created that routine. And this is going to call initialize array routine. Let's go ahead and build that routine right away. We'll put it right here. This will be initialize, or it'll be private void initialize array, and it's expecting a double array called DBL array. We'll make it a different name than we actually have on here and give it its brackets. That erases the error we have up here. And now we can go ahead and actually do this. So we're going to do a simple loop to put zeros in this entire thing. So we're going to go ahead and say for I is equal to 0, I is less than the length of the array, I plus plus, and then we're going to DBL array I is equal to 0. Just like that. That's all we need to do. So this is going to actually place 0 in the element. And it'll do so until it's filled the entire array. So that's it. That's done with that thing. So that's we pieced that together. So our entire array is now filled with zeros. Does it run? Save all. Run. Nothing is broken. We can assume the array has got the zeros in it. We could look at it with debug, but I'm going to think we're okay. It's pretty straightforward what we've done here. Our exit button works, so we're back to it. Next thing we're going to do in our array, on our form load, is read the file to the array. So we're going to set up a routine called read file to array. We're going to pass it DBL cache sales and a reference of int record count. We've already set record count to 0, so we're going to actually let it determine what our number is going to be there, what our last record is going to be. So we'll go in here and we're going to read the file into the array. And again, we'll go ahead and create this. We do a private void read file to array. And we're going to give it a double array called DBL array. And we're going to give it a reference of int record count. Then we're going to set up our brackets. That erases the error up here and allows us to actually put this thing in place. So what we're going to do for this thing? Well, we're going to put a try in it because we're going to be reading a file. So we'll do try, and it's going to have a catch. Exception .ex, and it's going to be a case there. We're going to put a message box in here. We're going to display a message. If in error, something goes wrong. And now we can go ahead and actually code our try piece, the part where it's supposed to be good if something happens here. We're going to set a counter, int count is going to be equal to 0. Oh, that's what I want to do. I want to actually say this is int count. Let's get rid of that. Instead of using the same name, I'm going to give this a count. It'll still pass back to the record count. So whatever this guy becomes, it'll end up returning this value. So we are there. So we're going to say int count is equal to 0. So that's our record count. Because you can see it's passing, the record count is being passed, reference is passing to this variable right here. We can use the same names I like to make them different though, just so we're aware of the fact that this int count is unique to this variable right here, this routine right down here, and can't be seen by any other routine. However, the fact that we're passing by reference, we've given it the keys to actually make the change to this guy up here. So whatever this becomes, automatically becomes set up in here as well, up in the int record count. So let's go ahead. Int count is equal to 0. That's going to initialize the count to 0. We're then going to create our stream reader. And that's going to be input file. Activate stream reader. And we don't have an error here, so I'm assuming our plus is okay up here. We do have a system IO is sitting in there, so that's great. It's already set up in that thing, so we don't need to worry about that. Next thing we need to do is basically go into here and set up our input file. Our input file is going to be equal to file.opentext cache sales.txt. And then we're going to set up I spelled input file wrong. Input file, F, there we go. That should be a capital F. Yes. Now we can go back down here. And I can put our loop in place. While int count is less than the length of the array and not input file and a string. And then set up our array. We got this with all the proper parentheses in here? Looks like we do, so we can actually go ahead and create this. There we go. Why do I have an error here? Int count is less than double array length and not input file end of stream. Oh, I see the problem. We don't want this parentheses here. We wanted just the parentheses, double parentheses sitting outside. So we're fine now. Now we can simply say that while DBL array int count is equal to double.parse input file read line. So we're going to read our line right into the array, and we're going to convert it to a double right away. We're parsing it right away because it's coming in as a number. And if we have an error in that file, the try catch is going to come up and tell us what it is. But this will actually parse it to a double and put it into the array, so we can actually use it in math. We're then going to increment the count, and that'll do it right here. Int count is equal to int count plus 1 or plus 1 or whatever, however you want to do it. So this is it right here. So this is going to read our number, and when it's done reading those records, it's going to stop at 12 or whatever the number is. Int count is going to be here, which is going to pass it back to our record count. So the record count will automatically have a 12 in it, so we'll know how many records were actually read into the file when we get there. So that's good shape right there. We'll still do file save. We're probably going to get an error now. I'm going to run it once. And we did. It couldn't find the file because we didn't put the file in the bin folder. I needed to actually do that. So we'll end it. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab that file. I've got it sitting out here in a folder. This one is going to have it. I think somewhere in here I have it. And arrays. Array average. I've got a sandbox here with an older version of the program. And I'll go into that file. Go into the bin folder. Debug folder. And there's the cache sales that I want. So I'm going to do a Control C on this, back up, oops, I was in the right spot, go into the demo program that I'm actually running right now, go into its folder, its bin folder, down to its debug folder, and paste the number in there. And now our cache sales is there. Want to see it real quickly? We'll go ahead and open it up, and up it pops, and there's our numbers that we're actually going to be reading. So they're there. So we can move this out of the way right now. And we can try the program again. And this time it successfully ran. We don't see anything else right now. We just know that it didn't fail on the file. It actually found the file, read the records, and we're sitting there. Again, debug would tell us that, but we shouldn't need to do that. We should feel fairly confident that thing is actually run. The next thing we want to do is we want to basically copy the array values to a list box. So we're going to copy array values to list box. And we're going to use the array, DBL cache sales again. We're going to pass that to the, and we're also going to pass it int record count. We don't need to do it by ref because we're just sending it the value right now. We're not going to make any changes to it. We just want that number, how many records we read, to be there, and it's going to have that, so it actually grabs it. It knows what to actually copy in. So this is going to copy read values to list box. And again, we'll go ahead and create that routine. Private void copy array values to, I really have a problem spelling values, don't I? To list box. And we're going to bring in a double array called DBL array, DBL array. And we're also going to pass it the int count. Again, in record count will be used here, but we don't need to worry about that. We'll go ahead and set up our brackets, our braces rather, and that routine is now set to do this. How's it going to do it? Well, it's another simple loop. Basically, it's going to be a for I equals 0. I is less than int count. I is less than int count. And I plus plus. And then put in our braces. And we're set to go. So notice I use int count here because we pass it the number. So I only want to copy in the values that are actually non-zero into the list box. I don't want to pack the list box with everything in the array and go to the end. I could do that, but I don't want that there. I just want to show the values we actually read and that were above 0 or that were actually read into the array. So now I actually do that piece. So it's lbx file.items.add dbl array count. And this is going to add to list box. Because this right here. Copy. And we can do a file save. We should actually see something now if we run it. And we do. Our numbers are coming in. They all look good, so we're all there. So now it's just a matter of actually doing our calculations that we need to do here. So we'll come up to the up to our list box here, and we'll say calculate total of array. And we'll do that by passing it the array, the cache sales array and the record count. And this will calculate total and display results. How do we do that? Create our method, private void calculate total of array, grabbing the double array called DBL array and the int count. And we are, oops, didn't spell double right, O-U-B-L-E. There we go. Now we go back to here. And to do this, we're going to set up a total. D-O-U-B-L-E, a DBL total is going to be equal to 0. This will be a value that establishes total value. So this will be our, what we're going to total out to. We need a semicolon here. We're going to do a 4. I'm going to drop down here and go 4. And I equals 0. I is less than in count. And I plus plus. Put it in our braces. And we'll simply put in DBL total is equal to DBL total plus DBL array I. So we add element to total. And then we can go down here and say LBX summary dot text is equal to DBL total to string. In fact, let's go a little beyond that and go ahead and say that we'd like to make this, oh, I'm sorry, it's not total dot text, it's LBL summary dot items. Let's do this. Items dot add, and we're going to add total is the colon. We're going to concatenate a little bit here, and we're going to say plus DBL total dot toString, and we're going to make the string currency. Oops, I think we got the right number of parentheses in there. I think we do, and that's all we need there. So we'll do file save and do a run. And look, we need to do nothing. We just simply run the program, and it calculates all of these numbers and gives us a total in currency as $4,450.94. Where's our average? Average is very easy to put in place. We can just basically give ourselves another variable right here called double DBL average and make that equal to 0. And this will be our average variable. And then all we need to do is go down here where we did the summary here, and right after it we can say that DBL average is equal to DBL total divided by int count. That gives us our average. We want to display it, LBX summary dot items dot add average is, again the quote there with the plus, DBL average to string currency, and it's done. Do a file save on this, do a start. That's it. $371.08 is the average of this total of all these things, because we have the number of items in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 items basically in that total. So this divided by 12 is going to give you 371.08. That's all it is to actually go ahead and calculate totals and average. Remember though, this array was large. It was 100 long. We certainly did not want to start going through all those zeros and putting that in place. So instead of using the lengthy array as our divisor, we actually created a counter that read that as we read in the records, we got the number of records actually read in, and that's our divisor. That's it. Wow, and everything was done in form load and with methods. We'll add to these in the next video. How easy would it be to find the largest number or the smallest? Once you have those numbers in an array, there's so much you can do with them. I'll show you more next time. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to use the website for easy access to all my videos. And if you get a chance, please subscribe. That way you'll be notified when something new is available. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.